Quarterback rankings. What do we say? What do others say? What needs to be said? We appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football for the very best in discussion, debate, and analysis. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's get down to our quarterback rankings that we deliver each and every offseason. Typically, we also look at the quarterbacks in each conference and rank them from top to bottom. This is a national look from our perspective, from the perspective of several different national sources, and then we put it all together. Let's also keep a few items into consideration. So most people rate quarterbacks based on what they believe their final numbers are going to look like. We don't here at the Voice of College Football. So let's make this very obvious example. Tom Brady posted the best numbers in the history of the NFL generally. But if Tom Brady would have played for the worst offense in the NFL, his numbers would have suffered. I would have still, based on my approach, tried to cut through the other personnel, the offensive line, the wide receivers, the running backs, to determine Tom Brady's value as a player individually, not projecting his statistics. This season, Will Howard may not be the best quarterback in the nation, may not be one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the country, but he may produce based on the offensive line and certainly the playmakers all around him and the offensive system devised by Chip Kelly and Ryan Day. Top 10, top 5 statistics nationally. Does that mean he's a top 5 player at the position? Not necessarily. So I try to cut through the stats and look at the player and make an accurate player evaluation. Let's also understand that these publications and also so-called experts aren't necessarily breaking down the film. They are not necessarily relying on scouts and coaches who know from breaking down the film and facing these quarterbacks how they truly should be rated. They are relying heavily on statistics and they are relying on reputation, and there is a modicum of group think. Also understand when it comes to reputation that we are also relying here at the Voice of College Football on projection. I believe that plays a role. So I've been criticized in the past for taking particular players who had no track record, no resume, nothing to rely on, and I make a projection. And some of those projections, I'm sure through the years, have fallen flat. Other projections have proven to be pretty damn good. Like Tua Tagovailoa. What had he done entering 2018? Very little, except step into a second half situation in the national championship game and deliver a 2nd and 26 national championship winning touchdown pass down the sideline to Devontae Smith. So there was little track record there for Tua Tagovailoa, but I ranked him very high in my 2018 quarterback rankings. Even more so in 2021, Bryce Young had thrown, I believe, 10 or 15 passes in complete garbage time in 2020 in relief of Mac Jones. But I ranked him as the second best quarterback in all of college football, and I caught hell for it. But my determination was Bryce Young was this highly touted coming out of high school. He's got 1 year in the system, not on the field on Saturdays, but in the system under his belt. And if Nick Saban, with all the quarterback battles that Nick Saban evaluated just a couple years prior and evaluating guys like Blake Sims and Jay Coker against each other to determine a quarterback that would then lead Alabama to a national championship. If Nick Saban determined before spring practice that Bryce Young was the man, then I was going to go with that projection, and that worked out. He won the Heisman Trophy. So let's look at my 2023. Go back 1 year, 2023. Let's keep in mind, these aren't going to be perfect because you have the advantage of hindsight. This is before the 23 season. When I ranked Caleb Williams, coming off a Heisman Trophy, as the best quarterback in college football. Michael Penix, number 2. I rated Sam Hartman 3. North Carolina's Drake May, number 4. Jordan Travis, 5. Jaden Daniels at number 6, who was arguably the best quarterback in the country and the Heisman Trophy winner. KJ Jefferson coming off 2 seasons in which he threw 42 touchdowns against 9 interceptions, and had one of the best running performances in college football at the quarterback position the previous 2 years at number 7. Bo Nix, who obviously, from a statistical standpoint, played out of his mind in 2023 at number 8. J.J. McCarthy at number 9. And Devin Leary of Kentucky, the NC State transfer, at number 10. And I had various honorable mentions, a list of 10 or 15 quarterbacks that included Kyle McCord, Will Rogers, and all sorts of quarterbacks all over the place in my honorable mention category. I don't see game-changing elite players in this 2024 quarterback class who are proven. I see guys with potential like a Jalen Daniels from Kansas, but I don't see those guys at the top of the board as we've seen in recent years from guys who were proven. Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, those types of players that have been at the top of the board, CJ Stroud, after proving it on the field and then putting that NFL talent together with the track record, the experience, the statistics from years gone by. A guy like Jalen Daniels from Kansas, yes, he could possibly surge to the top of the rankings, but the guys at the top of the board are the tried and true guys, especially this Carson Beck guy that you see right next to me from Georgia. We think that he's going to make the right decisions, make the right calls, not discarding his talent and ability in any such way, but it's not game-changing, dynamic ability that's just eye-popping, jaw-dropping. Before we get to the Voice of College Football rankings, let's check out what some others are saying about these quarterbacks. ESPN posted a list of their top 10 quarterbacks, but if you took the listings all the way out to all of the rankings according to their writers, they ranked 21 quarterbacks. Carson Beck at number 1. Dylan Gabriel moving from, of course, Oklahoma to Oregon at number 2. Quinn Ewers at number 3. On down the list. Jalen Milroe at number 4. Nothing really surprises me. And we will make the comparison as we look across the board at the other rankings. Will Howard's at number 13 from Ohio State. Of course, Will Howard is one of the more intriguing rankings because you're looking at possibly the most talented and the best team in the country merged with not necessarily a top 10, top 15 quarterback. Something in that range at best. DJ Uiagalelei has a wealth of experience at Clemson and Oregon State, but he's definitely a downgrade at Florida State from Jordan Travis, and ESPN has him at number 17. You see Will Rogers at number 21, moving from Mississippi State to Washington, and Will Rogers at Washington this season will be one of the most prolific quarterbacks in the history of college football. Another couple guys to look out for. Shadur Sanders at number 8 is a just dynamic player, a fun player to watch. And of course, he's got several guys on the offensive side that allow him to utilize his skills, but he's forced into utilizing his skills way too often by a poor offensive line that should be better this season for the Colorado Buffs as they move to the Big 12. Cam Rising, also moving from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, missed all of 2023. He's a gamer, not necessarily a ultra-talented passer. Cam Ward at Miami, we'll see him move from Washington State and work with better players. Brady Cook, a lot of people think highly of him at number 11, working with a very talented wide receiver core at Mizzou. An outfit by the name of Sports Grid that I'm completely unfamiliar with ranked every quarterback in college football, every quarterback situation, and obviously as you go down the list, then you start to run into programs that have yet to select a starting quarterback, but they've got Carson Beck at number 1, Jackson Dart of Ole Miss at number 2, Ewers at 3, Gabriel Sanders, and on down the list, you see it right there. Nico Iamaleava of Tennessee is an interesting prospect in that, much like what we talked about with Tua and with Bryce Young, is a guy that could burst onto the scene, but of course he's got a little track record. He did play well against one of the best defenses in the country, Iowa, in the Citrus Bowl last year. Garrett Nussmeier of LSU's got some capable wide receivers and, of course, one of the best offensive lines in the country, and Sports Grid has him at number 10. Athlon ranked 20 quarterbacks. Carson Beck, again, number 1. That's pretty consistent across the board. These top 4 to 5 quarterbacks pretty consistently ranked at the top end of college football. Dylan Gabriel, Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, Jackson Dart. The most inexperienced quarterback that you see at the top end is Jalen Daniels of Kansas. Athlon sneaks Will Howard into the top 20, also as Drew Aller at number 19. Cam Ward down at number 17, ESPN at number 10 for Cam Ward, the new Miami quarterback. Fifthquarter.net ranked 50 quarterbacks. Again, it's Beck at number 1. They like Jackson Dart of Ole Miss at number 2, and Noah Fifita, the Arizona quarterback, moving to the Big 12 at number 3. Shedeur Sanders, they have ranked a little bit higher than most, and also Brady Cook. They have upped the rankings ahead of Quinn Ewers, Dylan Gabriel, and others. So they like those 3 quarterbacks at 2, 3, and 4 higher than anybody else. And also, again, Brady Cook. Former Alabama quarterback and ESPN analyst Greg McElroy, whom I highly respect, has Carson Beck at number 1, Quinn Ewers at 2. He really likes Shedeur Sanders at 3. And there is his top 10, which includes Gabriel, Milroe, Rising, Ward, Fifita, Dart, and Daniels. It's a pretty standard top 10 out of Greg McElroy. When we look at the sporting news, let's keep in mind that as they list 25 quarterbacks, that the top 6 in their 2023 rankings were the top 6 quarterbacks taken in the 2024 NFL Draft. So that gives some credibility to at least their 2023 rankings. Beck's number 1, Ewers at number 2, and on down the list. Very consistent with most of the other rankings. They like Will Howard a little better than the others at number 10. We have yet to mention Riley Leonard of Notre Dame, of course, the second straight transfer quarterback who will start for Marcus Freeman in South Bend. And also Kansas State quarterback Avery Johnson, who will take the place of Will Howard and started the bowl game for the Wildcats in defeating NC State last year. That fan-sided list looks awfully familiar with Beck at 1, Ewers, Gabriel, Milroe, Fifita, Dart, Sanders, Ward, Rising, and Daniels. That's pretty much, if you would go with a consensus top 10, that would probably be it right there. Now let's look at what Phil Steele has to say, because in a sense, our guy Phil Steele has 3 different lists. He's got an NFL draft projection, which doesn't necessarily run contiguous with the performance in college. It's an NFL draft. It's a talent projection. And then he also has the 4 players that he listed as All-Americans on his top 4 teams. And then he's got positional units, which of course at quarterback relies heavily on the starter being the guy, even though he's taking into consideration the depth at the position and the backup and how good the backup is, but it's mostly about the starter. Steele has Beck at number 1, Dart 2, Sanders 3, Drew Aller at number 4 as an NFL draft prospect. So that's the biggest separation or disparity between this Phil Steele NFL draft prospectus and the other lists. Quinn Ewers at 6. Connor Weigman, we have yet to talk about him, highly rated and considered out of Texas A&M. But then if you look at All-America teams for Phil Steele, then Steele definitely gives consideration to the backup position because he's got Ewers as 4th team All-American. He's got Ewers as the 6th best NFL prospect, but he's got the Texas quarterback room at number 1 with Arch Manning as the backup. Georgia's at number 2. Also, Alabama's in the top 4, along with that Oregon quarterback room with Dylan Gabriel and also Dante Moore. Now we arrive at my rankings here at the Voice of College Football. And also, I remind you, this is not a statistical projection solely. If it was, I, for example, would put Ohio State's Will Howard in the top 10. I believe that Will Howard, with that complementary of weapons, will deliver top 10 statistics rushing, passing combined. 35 touchdowns passing, 6 or 8 rushing touchdowns. It will look like a top 10 quarterback. But I am ranking the players themselves based on what I've seen, what I've heard, what I've read, what I've put together based on my evaluation. Therefore, group of 5 quarterbacks, sorry, we're going to leave you out this year. I simply have not seen or know enough about Caden Salter or Byron Brown, and considering the level of competition that they face week to week, they just don't face the type of competition. They will put up enormous numbers. Now, we've got a guy in Preston Stone at SMU who threw 28 touchdowns, led his team to a conference championship and 11-3 record, but also 3 losses against the Power 4 conferences, and also now moving on as a group of 5 quarterback to the ACC. So we will see how he will play. before we get to the top 10, a couple guys that I'd like to note, and I could name a zillion. Graham Mertz, 20 touchdowns, 3 picks, set an SEC completion percentage record, a better quarterback with some development against a brutal schedule last season that delivered. So kudos to Graham Mertz improving his play and probably benefiting from better coaching. And then also this season, look out for Miller Moss of USC. It's going to be intriguing because he's not a proven quarterback. One huge game in the bowl game. Obviously, he's been waiting in the wings very patiently, and he's got the advantage of working in the Lincoln Riley system, but he's got to face some really good defenses. But, of course, the system is going to help him out, and Lincoln Riley develops quarterbacks as good or better than anyone. Also, Aiden Childs at Michigan State with the work that he has done now for a second season under Jonathan Smith, and he looked good in garbage time in 2023 as well. Now let's get to the top 10, and we will start from the bottom with Jalen Daniels. He only played 3 games last year, but Jalen Daniels of Kansas, I'm combining what I've seen with what I know about his talent, and then also the track record is limited. Noah Fafita is a top 5 to 10 quarterback according to most people. I've seen him play quite a bit at Arizona. Brady Cook is strong and steady, really broke through last year, did not have a handle on this job going into 2023, but he is clearly the guy at Mizzou, and they could do big things this fall. Jalen Milroe at number 7, he has been probably analyzed more than anybody on this board because, of course, he is replacing a long line of talented first-round NFL picks, 3 consecutive NFL picks out of that Alabama quarterback position. And we saw the obvious struggles early. Then they figured it out and how to work with him, how to utilize him. And Kalen DeBoer now gets to put his finishing touches on Jalen Milroe. Cam Ward at Washington State made a ton of mistakes, but of course, he played with generally an inferior team that only went 2-7 in the Pac-12 this past year. So he goes to Miami. That's one to look out for. Shadur Sanders, again, the improved offensive line should help him. Hopefully he will be able to adjust his play, understanding that he probably can play within the structure of the offense more effectively this year. Dylan Gabriel, number 4 at Oregon. If he puts together the season, his average season in college football, he's going to be one of the most prolific quarterbacks in the history of the game. Jackson Dart, I rank higher than most. I really like him out of Ole Miss. 23 touchdowns, 5 picks last year for the Rebels. And in support of the Lane Kiffin offense, he should light it up. Tons expected out of Ole Miss this season. I, unlike everybody else, am going to pull the trigger on Quinn Ewers over Carson Beck. Now, this is one of those situations where I am more sure about Carson Beck. If you were going to say one of these guys is going to bomb this season, I would say that's going to be Quinn Ewers. But if you were going to ask me who could break out and become, boom, surefire number 1 pick in the NFL draft this year, then I'm going to say Quinn Ewers. So because of Sark, because of them putting everything together and putting Quinn Ewers in the place to succeed, again, this is not a statistics projection, but I'm saying that because of the support of Sark and talented players and replacing some great wide receivers, but Texas probably in the best position of any team in the country to replace game changers at the running back and wide receiver positions, that Quinn Ewers will take that leap forward and be the player that he was in 2023 at his best more often and be better on the high side, the ceiling, than Carson Beck is from week to week. Those are my quarterback rankings for 2024. Please leave your comments and questions down below right here at the Voice of College Football. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis right here at the Voice of College Football.